Hi, Pocket. In Monster Hunter Wilds, when you hunt a specific monster 20, 30, 40, and 50 times, you are given a title. These titles do nothing mechanically, but socially, they're as endgame as it gets. I mean, who doesn't want to hold the title Match Ignition? I'll be hunting them all in this fashion, 50 of each. In this case, I'm hunting Quematrice, who I affectionately call Fire Chicken. Fire Chicken unlocks the titles Quematrice, Tattered, Ignition, and Match. Before starting the hunt, I had already hunted 13 Quematrice, but I'll still be hunting another 50, up to 63. Unlike with Chata, I decided to actually make a set of gear for the Fire Chicken. Nothing too exciting really, just a water greatsword and some useful jewels I had on hand. Now, let the investigations commence. A little Monster Hunter 101. Quematrice is new to the Monster Hunter cast of creatures, but the type of monster it is not. Brute wyverns make up some of the most iconic monsters we've ever seen from the series. Glavenus, for example, the flagship monster for Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, my entry point to the series, is a brute wyvern. Basically, if you look at a monster, you see big back legs, T-Rex arms, it can't fly, and or usually an intimidating tail, it's probably a brute wyvern. Rompopolopolo is also one of these. So is the beloved Devil Joe. Those intimidating tails I mentioned are almost always severable, and this is no different with Quematrice, so I was glad to be taking the greatsword into these hunts. Brute wyvern tails are usually big weak spots too. In the case of Fire Chicken, a lot of their moves shoot out some explosive powdery stuff, and once the tail is severed, those moves just stop exploding, trivializing a lot of Fire Chicken's scariest attacks. Even what I consider to be the Fire Chicken's ultimate move, the fire twirl of infinite destruction, becomes a cute little pirouette when there's no tail. In 50 hunts, I chopped off all 50 tails. And I genuinely don't think I would have gotten all the tails without the next thing that I started to figure out about 10 to 15 hunts in. That is something I call the focus pivot. This might be more of a greatsword tip, and potentially something a lot of people already know about from the 15,000 top 10 things you didn't know about Monster Hunter Wild videos, but I'm going to talk about it anyway because I learned it and I think it's cool. Basically, when you're in focus mode, the reticle moves a bit slower. You can think about it like being scoped in a first-person shooter game, lowering your turn rate. But if you start focus mode midway through an attack, your character can turn pretty sharply to adjust to the focus mode. Because of this, you can pivot mid-attack to land some cool slashes and really lock in those mega swings that you might otherwise miss. Figuring this out and pulling it off reminds me of how Shortcat, a great YouTuber who makes Mario Kart videos and I watch every single one of whenever they come out, will sometimes turn on smart steering super fast mid-race, and the game will force an impossibly sharp turn. The pivot also helps a ton with aiming that big swing at sleeping monsters. Gone are the days of missing or hitting with the tragic limp lunge. My protractor and yardstick are in the trash, no longer needed for measuring that perfect distance to triangulate the optimal headshot. I'll definitely be playing around with this more on greatsword, but I would love to hear if this sort of technique applies to any other weapons. Learning new techniques like this one is one of my favorite things in gaming. I find discussing and hypothesizing how things might work and then testing them really rewarding, especially in a game like Monster Hunter that rewards that sort of creativity. I was genuinely surprised when the second hunt lasted 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Especially since Fire Chicken wasn't a monster I felt very confident in at first. While I didn't cart, I don't think there was a single hunt of the 50 that I did completely hitless, and if I did, it didn't feel like it. This has a lot to do with using gear that is tuned to the monster's weakness. With a water weapon against the water-weak Quematrice, I was doing a lot of damage, and these hunts would have taken a lot longer if I hadn't taken 15 minutes to glue together a set after researching Fire Chicken's weak points. On average, each hunt took around 3.12 minutes. It was great to be rewarded for that diligence, a trait befitting a good hunter. Who knew the merits of entering a hunt prepared? Obviously, it's by no means necessary. I'd hunted everything in the game up to this point without really tuning a set of gear for anything in particular, and that worked just fine. I even went out of my way to make a botanist and a geologist set for gathering before I made anything for combat. Still, it was surprising when a sloppy hunt like this one, Hunt 44, ended up being only 2 minutes and 3 seconds long. Definitely not the cleanest. I mean, I got hit, I think, a few times, but apparently very efficient. This was my fastest hunt of all 50. Also, someone asked me how I'm able to flash pod monsters in multiplayer really quickly when they start to leave the area. I actually watched the little red ring around the minimap. When it turns white, it usually means that the monster is going to start fleeing, and they like to do that when they get the little skulls above their head too, to say that they're low. More damage can impact a clear time in less obvious ways too. More damage means more knockdowns and more wounds, meaning it's less linear than it might seem. By the end, I'd hunted 50 fire chickens, I'd gathered 89 tails, 98 certificates, 114 crests, 130 igniters, 206 scales, 211 hides, 24 wyvern gems, and most importantly, the titles Quematrice, Tattered Ignition, and Match, that I may become Match Ignition, Tail Severer. If you liked this video and want to see another 50 hunts, or maybe you think fire chicken is an offensive thing to call a monster that doesn't have real feelings in a video game, and that's the hill you die on, either way, let me know. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.